Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. This past Sunday was Reformation Sunday, and we have spent the week since looking at some women I have called the mothers of the Reformation for the influence they had in spreading Reformation ideas. So today I want to shift gears a little bit and have a little fun. I subscribe to a magazine called Christian History, and the inside cover of every issue has interesting little facts and anecdotes about whoever that particular issue is about. There are several such interesting facts about Martin Luther and the Reformation, and I thought you would enjoy some of those today. So here goes. Christopher Columbus set sail while Luther was in grammar school, and Michelangelo was completing his Sistine Chapel ceiling as Luther began teaching theology. As a schoolboy, Luther preferred music to any other subject, and he became proficient at playing the lute. He gave away his lute when he entered the monastery at age 21. Early on as a reformer, Luther abandoned the idea that confession was a sacrament, and yet Luther continued to confess his sins to another person for most of his life. Luther once said that he had not even seen a Bible until he was 20 years old. When Luther became a priest and celebrated his first Mass, he trembled so much he nearly dropped the bread and cup. He became so terrified of the presence of Christ in the sacrament that he tried to run from the altar. Luther knew most of the New Testament and large sections of the Old Testament by memory. Luther's German translation of the Bible had more influence upon the German language than the King James Version had on English. Though almost 500 years old, Luther's translation is still sold and read widely. While known as one of the greatest preachers of all time, Luther became deeply discouraged with his congregation, frustrated that his hearers remained, in his opinion, godless. "It annoys me to keep preaching to you," he said, and he actually went on strike and refused to preach for a time. When the plague struck Wittenberg, the prince begged Luther to leave the area, but Luther felt that pastors should stay and help the afflicted. Because he and Catherine took in so many sick and dying people, their house had to be quarantined even after the plague ended. Even on his wedding night, Luther couldn't refuse a person in need. At 11 p.m., after all the wedding guests had left, a radical reformer Luther considered an enemy knocked at the door, fleeing the peasants' war and needing a safe place to stay. Luther took him in. It also says something that enemy sought out Luther for refuge. Luther made singing a central part of worship. He disposed of the choir and assigned all singing to the congregation. He would often call congregational rehearsals during the week so the people could learn new hymns. Luther's favorite mug had 3 rings. The first, he said, represented the 10 Commandments, the second, the Apostles' Creed, and the third, the Lord's Prayer. Luther was amused that he could drain the mug of wine through the Lord's Prayer, though a friend could not get beyond the 10 Commandments. However, Luther is never recorded to have gotten drunk. Luther and his fellow reformers in Wittenberg took religious education seriously. Here, for example, are worship services and sermon texts during one week. Sunday, 5 a.m., the Pauline epistles. Sunday, 9 a.m., the Gospels. Sunday afternoon, the Catechism. Monday and Tuesday, the Catechism. Wednesday, the Gospel of Matthew. Thursday and Friday, the Epistles. Saturday, the Gospel of John. While the preaching load was often shared, Luther typically spoke at all Sunday services. Finally, here are some fun and interesting things Luther said. The devil should not be allowed to keep all the best tunes for himself. Next to theology, I give to music the highest place and the greatest honor. If our Lord is permitted to create nice, large pike and good Rhine wine, presumably I may be allowed to eat and drink. Think of the squabbles Adam and Eve must have had in the course of their 900 years. Eve would say, "You ate the apple," and Adam would retort, "You gave it to me." The Bible is alive. It speaks to me. It has feet. It runs after me. It has hands. It lays hold of me. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.